Evans, welcome to my channel Social Care Connections. I hope you enjoy the video.
The model is a really great way of kind of getting your head around social pedagogy, and I think we've talked a lot about relationships and well-being is really important, so understanding what well-being means to people and helping them find a sense of well-being. You know, as human beings we all want to be feel well and feel happy. But I think it's the holistic learning that's really important, and I think this is the big difference in social work to social pedagogy, is that holistic learning is really important. So it's about supporting people to learn the things that they need so that they don't need social workers anymore. And we're never going to fix everything for everybody. We can't make life perfect for people, but what we can do is that we can help them kind of get the skills so that they can manage the ups and downs of life. And we talk about life space in social pedagogy, and that is about using every opportunity in a person's life to help them learn the things they need to be a functioning human being. And I'm sure Ali will have some more points about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for me, the learning is almost the key to the empowerment, and I think that's something that we've missed to some degree in social work, as it's become the statutory roles have kind of taken over to some degree. And it's quite interesting. I've recently been talking to some social workers who are working as part of the pandemic and capturing some of the learning that's happened as a result of having to change practice really quickly and respond in a much more human way to people's lives, because there is no script in a sense. One social worker said it's interesting because we're seeing so much more resilience in individuals. They're identifying their own solutions and feeling a much bigger part of that, of how to respond to something. They're not looking to us for that expertise because we haven't got that expertise. We're new to this as they are. So actually tapping into learning and developing is making them feel truly empowered in a way that we could never fix that problem for somebody. So, and I suppose the other thing is that holistic learning leads to people empowering themselves. We don't empower people, they empower themselves.
So that's it. I mean, yeah, with the holistic learning, like, because my practice ties in with therapeutic work, so that's sort of along the lines of learning about emotional literacy, or is it around psychoeducation stuff? So the more that they understand what their mental health condition is, you know, the more able they are to sort of meet the needs that they've got. So say if someone's got like a physical illness, say they've broken the leg, the more that they know about how to deal with that, the more able they are going to be to deal with that broken leg sort of thing. And with the empowerment, so giving, you know, working with them to develop the skills and tools to empower themselves and build their, you know, their own levels of agency and stuff. Yeah, and also, what did you think about what they were saying about social pedagogy being less procedural and social work? So I do think that social work is very policy-led. Do you in your practice get a chance to do that proper therapeutic work?
Yeah, and it's great that we don't have that procedural part, because if I'm supporting someone so if the experiences that they've had, they've developed coping mechanisms in one way or the other, whether it's through anxiety or depression, these things that have come up, which at some point have been their ways of trying to manage what they've experienced, but it's sort of still carrying on after that experience is finished. That anxiety and depression is still leading over. And if it was, when that comes up, they have their own individual needs and their own different ways of communicating. And if I was sort of restricted by a procedural way of working, I wouldn't have the flexibility to work in a way that suits them best, sort of thing. For me, it's around, I'm in this space and we're working together to find their sort of language that works best for them, instead of me trying to, if I was in a more structured way, it'd be harder, because I'd be trying to make them fit the structure instead of me. I'd be trying to make them fit my practice instead of my practice fitting them. Yeah, so I'm lucky in that sense to have that flexibility with that.
It leaves more scope for creativity, doesn't it? And a big part of what they said was it's about the learning side of things and resilience.
I think one of the things that I've noticed is that it's more about the learning element rather than just, sort of looking at the learning as a main emphasis of the whole thing. So is that right with social pedagogy? That's like the central thing?
Yes, so with the diamond model,
Yeah.
they are the 4 parts of that, and the positive experience in the middle are the underlying concepts of social pedagogy. They're like the foundations that support it. And holistic learning does sort of support a lot more of them, because the more they're learning about themselves, the holistic learning, the more they get a sense of relationships and network of relationships that they've got. They develop more about their understanding of their own well-being, what their needs are, and empowerment. And the more they learn and develop, the more tools and skills they get to be able to empower themselves. And I agree with what Ali was saying, that you can't empower people, because otherwise that's just like an extension of your power. You're like, I will empower you.
Yeah.
Where that doesn't work. But we can cultivate spaces where they can empower themselves. And that sort of means, if they do it that way, that means when the intervention finishes, they've got the skills and tools that they need to support themselves moving forward on the journey for whatever's coming next.
Yeah, and I think I was reading around the area and it said it's not seeing children as like empty vessels. People have a whole range of things. Like children are in a perfect position to learn.
That's Paulo Freire's banking concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where it's sort of like, I will say these things to you and I will fill you with my knowledge, sort of thing. And then they just parrot that back. Where there's no actual learning going, you just, like I said, you're just parroting back something that you've heard, repeating something. Yeah, so it sees it as a space of that they've got something to contribute as well. And like Ali was saying about it, the pandemic sort of thing, none of us professionals have worked in the pandemic before. Yeah. So it's all completely new to us. So if we take that banking concept in mind, we wouldn't work that way anyway. I don't, but you wouldn't be able to anyway, because nobody's done this before.
Yeah.
So it's new for everybody.
Kind of like made it an equal playing field or whatever.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but like what I was thinking about is, I think for me, social work there are a lot of procedures, but it's balancing that with your ability to actually look through that and still see the person. So I just wanted to make a note of that, because it's like, I wouldn't want people to think that social workers only do the procedural side, because I do think that we do a lot of like really person-centered work, and I think it's quite good that you can take from different perspectives as well. You can take loads of different approaches and apply it to the person. Yeah. But equally, I think that's why you need to be reflective and like thinking about that person as an individual, which is central to this, isn't it? And just thinking about well-being and happiness as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that there is a tendency to just look at safety, isn't there? As opposed to like emotional well-being.
Yeah. And, picking up on that, if I was say I was supporting someone who was self-harming, for example, and it was just doing the safety stuff, like, okay, make sure your wounds are clean, and if you're covering them up if you can with hot plasters, and if you're not able to stay safe or you can't look after it, you need to get in touch with emergency services or something like that. If I was just only ever doing that, nothing's going to get done. Whereas if we move away, if we keep the safety part in one hand, sort of saying, right, the safety part's done, but let's find out where the root of this is actually coming from. Yeah. And address that. You're addressing the issue that's underneath it instead of just trying to make sure they're safe with it. But it's different, because different people have different roles, whether it's in social pedagogy or social work or education, where the risk you work with is a lot higher than the risk that I work with. Well, you work with higher risk a lot more normal than what it is for me, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it's but there is a big emphasis on preventative work as well. So like what you're saying, like getting to the root of the problem, if we were doing more preventative work, and that, which is the direction of the law around everything, it's like then we'd be really looking at what things matter to people. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to find out what's important to people.
Definitely, yeah. So when you're working with a higher risk, the safety stuff's going to be really important, but that also has to be married with, you know, the person-centered practice and looking at what they need and trying to get, like you said, trying to get the balance between the two. Yeah, and like you were saying before, that, you know, it's unfair to tar every single social worker in the world with this sort of like image that they're given, because there's loads of great social workers out there. You know, unfortunately, a lot of them get tarred with same brush, but you know, it is important to have person-centered practice, because then we're getting closer then to rights-based practice, recognizing,
which is fundamental to like why these services are there, isn't it? That's why people come into it. So
yeah
I think that's like a lot of what Ali Gardner said to me was it's reclaiming your practice and doing what you came out to do, really.
Yeah, every role that I've sort of been in, I've been quite lucky that there's a lot of flexibility in it, or if there hasn't been flexibility, I've found a way to sort of bring it back sort of way. So if the practice was going in a way that wasn't as sound as it could be, for example, or if there was ways that it could be improved, or you know, if things have been done away for quite a long time, but the culture's changed now around that and it needs to change with it to catch up, then, you know, those conversations can be had, because really we're all working towards better outcomes for people. And if there's better ways of doing that, you know, it benefits everybody. It benefits us as practitioners, it benefits the service, it benefits the person who's engaging, funders as well. They'll be more happy with better outcomes. So everybody, you know, nobody loses out by better outcomes.
If you enjoyed the video, please can you like and subscribe and press the bell if you'd like to be updated when I put out more videos. Thank you.